Okay, alright fam, so in the last video we worked on recreating the right side of the ChatGPT landing page in Figma. This is the main side. This is where you would see sort of the initial prompts here, and then also leverage the send message input to start a conversation with ChatGPT. And we practiced a ton of skills in the last video. We practiced creating and organizing components. We used a ton of auto layout. We used several plugins that I wanted to share. Again, one was called Auto Grid, right? And we also used something called component page. So moving a parent component or master component to a specific page. So if I jump to component, you'll notice here this specific page in my file has all my components, and we were able to sort of just keep everything well organized. All right. So in this video, we're going to keep using some of those same skills. We're going to definitely continue to inspect HTML elements here in our browser, and we're going to use that to find out CSS properties. So for example, one asset that I forgot to grab is the image. So if you sign in using Google like I did, you'll have a little small picture of your Google profile if you have one. So I'm going to copy this little photo of me and paste that here as an asset. All right, and let's see, how small is that supposed to be? 20 by 20. So let's make sure I resize myself to really small, 20 by 20. Okay. So yeah, in the left side panel, let's have a better look at this. There's a bunch of little components and stuff going on here. There's two buttons here at the top. There's one with an icon and text, and one is just strictly an icon. There's a bunch of little side panel chat items. So I'm gonna call these side panel items, and then this is a chat item type. There's also a label for like previous number of days, previous 7, 30 days. We have a border going on here, a call to action to upgrade to plus, a new badge, and then my account item. So we have an upgrade item, account item with an icon, some chat items, some label items, and of course a button, another button component. All right, so let's actually start with the buttons. If I hop over back into the browser here, it looks like this is 14 pixels, 12 pixels of padding, and this is also 12 pixels of padding. And let's see, how much is the border radius again? 6 pixels. Okay, cool, I can work with that. So I'm gonna jump to my components and see if I can work with this one that I had made a while back. So 12 pixels, and okay, cool. So I think I'm gonna have to create another variant here. And this is gonna be a default state, but it's gonna have a new property, and it's gonna be a new type property. All right, and there's gonna be basically like primary versus secondary types. So by default, everything is a primary type. I'm gonna change this one to a secondary. Move this property up. So the first two buttons here are primary buttons. This one has a default state. This is a hover state. This is going to be also a default state. And we're going to change the size of the font from 12 to 14, I think it was. Yeah, 14. Keep the spacing. No, we're going to also change the spacing to 12. 12 pixels. 12 pixels of spacing. What else? We're also going to change the fill to be that medium gray. Actually, I think it will probably be this off black color. There's also a stroke though, so let's give it that off-white stroke. Actually, it's probably a little bit more muted. It's this gray color, but we can fix that later if we got that wrong. And then the last thing I want to add inside this button is the ChatGPT icon. So the icon is a plus icon. And how big is this one? It's 16 pixels. So in this case, this is the right icon, but it's too big. So what I'm going to do is resize it by hitting K. K is to scale. And then I have correctly scaled it to 16. And then I'm going to just change this to read new chat here. All right. Threw that in the auto layout just to move it over a little bit. Okay, great. So I have my new chat icon, or excuse me, button, and this is 192 in width. There's a gap of 8 pixels. So 192 is the width by default. 192 pixels. 192, not 129. Like that. So it's a pretty big button. Cool. So this is a secondary button style, and you'll notice that it has an icon and some text. And then now I want another variant that just has text, right? Or just has an icon, excuse me. So both these two buttons here have icons. So I'm going to back up and then add another property here that is a Boolean value. And basically this is going to read icon true or false. All right. And by default, it's going to say false. And so let's have a look here. So these all have icons. This is going to have an icon. Let's add a property here. So I'm renaming this icon equals true. Great. And then I'm going to rename this to say icon equals false. So basically when you rename components, you can actually manipulate the properties of that component variant. So in this case, it's false, and this one, oops, this one also false. This one also is true. And okay, so Figma is giving me a warning message because these two have, oops, these two have the same values. So I need to kind of add yet another aspect to this, which is does the button have text? All right, and so let's add another Boolean. Actually, you know what? I realize I might not even need this. Let me just get rid of this one. And let me just keep this. So let me get rid of this property. So let's just keep things simple. In fact, I only need these 3 buttons, and I'll show you why in just a minute. So let me hop back over to jump 3.3. Okay. We're going to come back here and we're going to finally add this button. All right. So this new chat button exists in the side panel, and the side panel by default has 8 pixels of padding all around. So let's throw this all in auto layout and give it 8 pixels. Push this guy all the way to the top. Make sure we resize this to be 984 pixels, like that. top and bottom like that. Great. So now we have the, let's see, 208. No, it needs to be a bit bigger. It's actually, how wide is this guy? The width, 260 pixels. So I need to change this to 260, like that. Okay, perfect. And then I'm going to add another button, except in this case, I'm going to hide the text and then have this hug the contents. And then because this icon here is hide panel, not the plus icon, although I think I broke it. Yeah, I broke it. Okay, the reason why I broke it just now is because I'm using the ChatGPT icon style hide panel, except hide panel, when you look at it, let's have a look at that. By default, it's a 24 by 24 pixel icon, right? But we don't want that. We need a 16 by 16 pixel icon. So let's recreate this. So I have this icon, it's 24 by 24. I need to do the same thing where I scale it down using K, 16 by 16, and that's looking a lot better. Here's the button that I was trying to reuse. So I'm going to detach that and paste in 16 by 16. There we go. Okay, and now we're in business. Perfect. Okay, and this is 41 pixels in height. Let's have check 44 pixels and 44 pixels. So they're both 44 pixels. Interesting. So in this case, I'm just going to manually override the height to be 44 pixels each, and then have all the elements inside be centered. Okay, so some things don't always work out. These are my buttons, and you can't really make components. Later we'll reflect on when the best time is to make components. But in this case, I learned that, you know, it wasn't the best time to turn these into components. In fact, it was faster to just kind of create them as standalone layers. And we'll talk about that in our next reflection video. Okay, so now we have that. Now I want the previous 7 days label, and days is capital like this, and I'm going to turn this into dark gray. That's too dark. I think it's a regular gray, and it is medium, I think, a bit more thicker, and you'll notice it is indented a bit more. So let's have a look at that. So there's a bit of spacing. In fact, there's 12 on every side. So this is the label item. There's 12 pixels of spacing on every side except for the bottom, which only has 8. So auto layout again coming to the rescue here. And then I'm going to have it fill the container like that. Okay. And I know there was another one called previous 30 days. So while I'm here, I just cloned my label frame by using Command D. And then this one here has 12, 12, 12, 12, and then 16 on the right. So let's figure out the text. 14 pixels. So 14 pixels, and let's just call this new chat for now. 14 pixels, this is the case, and I think it's going to be regular. 12 pixels on all sides, except 13 pixels on the far right, or excuse me, 16 pixels. Change this from hug to fill. So I want this new chat, or chat item really, to stretch out all the way. And then let's see here, we have our buttons. These are going to be like the items inside this side panel. And right now the items have a default spacing of 8 in between. I don't want that at all, in fact. Okay, so now this chat needs the messaging icon. So I'm going to make sure I use command click to paste the icon in here. Change this to message. Oops. A different message. I think it was a chat icon, that's right. And turn this white, off-white. Perfect. And if we look at this icon here, it's actually a 16 by 16. So we have the same situation where we need to hit K and rescale this. Okay. And then we're going to swap places with these two. Make sure it's center aligned like that. So we are starting to look good. There is a gap between the icon and the text of 12 pixels. So I'm going to make sure that is reflected there. And let's see. It does feel a little bit misaligned, not completely aligned. This is 17 pixels height. This is 16 pixels height. That's probably why. So if I gave this a fixed height to be 16 pixels, it would be a little bit more, or actually increase it a little bit. Yeah, and how high are these supposed to be? Ah, interesting, 44 pixels. So these are supposed to be 44 pixels in height. Okay, I think it's starting to feel a bit more balanced. Okay. All right, so now we have a new chat and we have our previous days. So I'm going to duplicate this a bunch of times. Command D, Command D, Command D, Command D, right? Until we have, you know, a ton of chats and we're getting to the bottom here. And then what's going to happen near the bottom is we're going to have a an area. So this is the items section, and we're going to constrain or clip this content so that we can make space. So the clipping the content and then holding down command and dragging this items frame lets me literally clip the content halfway like that, so that I have enough space for this border that I'm about to add in this last section. So I'm going to add another frame in here called settings, and the settings has an upgrade item and my account item. So let's turn this to auto layout. Let's have this fill the container here. Let's add a rectangle, and this rectangle is way too thick. I need it to be like grayish. I need to fill. This is my divider. So I'm renaming this to divider. And there. It's still too bright, so I'm going to tone it down a notch to gray. That is looking a bit better. Maybe that is still a little too dark. Yeah, so something like that. And actually I'm going to take this out because it's supposed to be closer to the edge. And this guy I'm also going to resize just so we can see the last chat there. But it is a scrollable section, so I am glad that I clipped the content there. Okay, so now we still have the settings section, and I'm going to use the base of the chat component that I had made. So settings, let's get rid of the spacing here, and then swap this, say this is upgrade to plus. Alright, and have not this fixed, but the hug, and then swap this icon out with the account icon, like that, and make sure everything here is off-white, like that. So that is starting to look good. And then previously I had already made this little yellow new badge, but it's basically like a button. It's got text, it's got auto layout, it's got some spacing, 6 pixels on the left and the right, 2 on the top. So I'm going to cut that and paste that in here, and we are definitely getting close. So the other thing to note is this is the icon plus label and the badge. The other thing to note is there's more spacing between the badge and the upgrade to plus. So that's why I have to put the icon and the label in its own separate auto layout, and the badge in keep that kind of in its own separate layer. And then the chat, this is not a chat anymore, this is upgrade. The upgrade frame here has the spacing set to auto, and that way the new badge is pushed out to the far right. Okay, and then I'm going to grab another chat, and just checking the spacing for these guys. They're both 12 pixels. 12 pixels all around. 12 pixels all around. This is going to be my name, and it's, let's see, is the gap still the same? Gap is 10 pixels. Okay, so let me go grab my face, which is here, and paste into here, and change this gap to 10 pixels instead of 12, and then get rid of the icon. This is account, and then the settings here does not actually have any, let's see, this is the settings. So the settings here should not actually have any additional space. There should just be 8 pixels here. I'm going to increase the size of my chat items here, and make sure my settings here is looking good. 1 more pixel here. It's about 8 pixels all around at the bottom, which is reflected in the CSS here. Okay, we're starting to look really good here. We're getting almost there. Okay, I'm going to add the last icon, which is an overflow icon. So if you look carefully, this overflow icon should be, again, an off-white and scaled to 16 pixels. This is my profile image. So I'm going to put this into another auto layout profile and name. And then account, I'm going to do the same thing. Hit X to split the profile and name frame with auto layout and the ChatGPT icon, overflow icon to be spaced out. And there you have it. We have finished recreating the ChatGPT landing screen. And on the far left, we have all of our new chats. We have our little divider here, our buttons here, and our account section here with the upgrade. You know, there's totally more I could do with this, but I'm going to stop here for now. And in the next video, I will see you for some reflections on this whole exercise series. Thank you.